Well, for the first time, the 49ers alarm update comes to you in the afternoon because this guy, Kyle Juszczyk, dominated the morning airwaves with his return to the 49ers. There is now a firm focus on the massive bet the 49ers are making on their offense. We can even go through some of the spending divisions of different top teams in the NFL, including the 49ers with their 50-50 offense-defense spend. That's about to change because the defense, well, they're going to be pouring capital into the defensive line, just like the Rams have, just like the Eagles have, just like the 2019 49ers did. So a lot of that strategy talk over the course of this show. But Kyle Juszczyk is back aboard, not just for a year, for 2 years. So the 49ers, through this whole saga, have extended his contract. $7 million fully guaranteed means that the 49ers are essentially committing to Kyle through 2025 and 2026. And most importantly, from a schematic standpoint here in the 2025 season, the 49ers now have both Luke Farrell and Kyle Juszczyk. On Monday, when the 49ers released Kyle Juszczyk and signed Luke Farrell, it looked like there was a shift happening to more 12 personnel, which means one back and two tight ends, because Farrell is a 6'5" tight end. He can block really well, but he's more in the mold of a Charlie Werner, whom the 49ers have missed since 2023. But now that Juszczyk is back in the fold, 21 personnel, two backs, one tight end is alive and well. And guess what also might be used at the highest rate in the Kyle Shanahan era? The 22 personnel package. Yes, two backs and two tight ends. The 49ers can have their cake and eat it too. You could sucker defenses in with these heavy run packages featuring both Farrell and Kyle Juszczyk, and of course, George Kittle plus Christian McCaffrey. Don't forget about him. And you could throw with Brock Purdy out of those personnel packages. So adaptability is king for the 49ers offense with both Juszczyk and Farrell aboard. San Francisco has that. Now, this wasn't cheap though. You have to pay the $7 million fully guaranteed to lock down Kyle Juszczyk, not only for 2025, but also 2026. And Luke Farrell is going to cost what? I think a contract up to $21 million for a tight end who specializes in blocking. 49ers are pouring a lot of money into the offense with the biggest expenditure still to come. That is for the quarterback himself, Brock Purdy. In fact, if you look at the 49ers roster right now, I started the highlighting of pillar pieces, foundation pieces in yellow. There are many more foundational pieces on the offensive side of the ball, core players, than the defensive side of the ball. Yes, Juszczyk, we had the ceremonial re-addition of him to the roster, and we shaded his name in yellow because the 49ers treat him as a foundational piece. Purdy, McCaffrey, Juszczyk, Brandon Ayuk, maybe we'll have a chance to work himself back into that category. George Kittle and Trent Williams. Three foundational pieces now on the defense, but this illustrates how the 49ers are building this football team. The model is high-priced offense and a young, cost-controlled defense. Let's take a look right now at the spending division for the 49ers. Now, this is before a lot of the free agency money has come in because we're waiting for the contracts to officially hit the books. So this is going to be changing, but that's my point. Offensive spending on the cap this year is in blue. Defensive spending on the cap is in red. And special team spending is in yellow. So 49.4% of the 49ers spending, or $116 million cap dollars, are going toward the offense. $114 million cap dollars, or just underneath that, 48.5%, are going toward the defense. And then a slight sliver towards special teams. Well, we talk about the 49ers following the Rams model. Look at where the Rams division is. Look, I'm going to go back to 49ers. It's a whole lot more spending on the defense. The Rams, this was the lowest defensive spending team in 2024. $58 million in 2025 headed toward the defense. Only 28% of their salary cap. 70.5% headed to the offense for the Rams. We could look at other teams that have been successful. Oh boy, the Eagles. Also heavy on offense, 61.5%, a little bit heavier on the defense than LA. How about the Bills? They've been successful, 61%, similar to the Rams on offense, 37% to the defense. And the Kansas City Chiefs, I think they've had some success as well, 63.4% to the defense and 33.5% to the offense. All in stark contrast to the 49ers, but this is shifting with the expenditures on Brock Purdy. Obviously, it's going to raise the offensive cap footprint for the 49ers, plus the willingness to spend on somebody like Luke Farrell, the willingness to spend on somebody like Kyle Juszczyk. They're going to re-sign George Kittle this offseason. That's obviously a point of emphasis for the 49ers. San Francisco is very, very clearly circling the wagons on offense, realizing that you need some continuity on offense. Otherwise, you're really going to sputter. Defense, that's more volatile. Even with teams that bring back a lot of guys season to season, statistically, we have seen that it's very hard to predict which defense is going to be excellent in any given year. I don't play fantasy football, but those of you who do, Mike lets me know because he watches. Those of you who do play fantasy football know how tough it is to draft a good defense at the start of the year because there is more volatility in that regard. So modern day football, when you go back to look at the Rams and the team that really struggled like the 49ers did in 2024, the Rams struggled in 2022 coming off their Super Bowl. Those types of teams, when they have remodeled the roster, have chosen to double down their draft picks on the defensive side of the ball. They've cut spending on that side of the ball, and they have upped spending on the offensive side of the ball. The draft, of course, is cost controlled. Another look at the Rams right here. Now, the Rams, so how have they built the defense so cheaply? How's the defense such a small piece of the pie? Well, we can go to the Rams and their 2024 defensive line. Remember this? I showed this to you yesterday. We can have another look at it today. Every yellow shaded or gold shaded defensive end or defensive tackle here in this middle column came through the draft process for the Rams. That is a lot of drafted defensive linemen. You know what? Very similar thing with the Philadelphia Eagles. A lot of drafted defensive linemen. The Eagles, look at how good the results have been. Green shade is better than red shade. Yellow is about average. A lot of green for the Eagles on the right. The Rams weren't quite as good, but they improved over the course of the season. Our next case study should be the San Francisco 49ers. And you know, with the 49ers, we can compare the 2024 defense and the 2019 defensive line, which was one of the great defensive lines in franchise history. What do you notice on the right side? I think it's obvious. On the right side, the 49ers have not built a defensive line that is very draft-oriented, especially relative to what the Rams and the Eagles put on tape this past year, put on the roster this past year, and what the 49ers, when they were so successful in 2019, put on tape. But this is about to change. 2024, the 49ers said, oh boy, defense is too expensive, it's too old, it's too slow, it doesn't stop the run well enough. We need that young, hungry defensive line. We've seen the Rams, we've seen the Eagles. They're going to go to the draft to build that defensive line. Meanwhile, they're going to double down on the offense, which has been successful throughout. Even in a tough year last year, Brock Purdy was number 7 in QBR. Christian McCaffrey, when he was available, did look good for the 49ers. He's going to be back at 100%. Somebody like Isaac Guerendo is going to buoy him. And they're tailoring the receiving crew to fit Brock Purdy and actually develop some separation this time. The fact that the 49ers were able to do what they did from an efficiency perspective on offense last year, despite the fact that it was an absolute train wreck in the receiver room, number 32, dead last in separation, should give you a lot of hope for the 49ers offense moving forward, because that will change moving forward. You're going to hopefully get Brandon Ayuk back at some point, unless you trade him. But even if you do, the 49ers offense will have McCaffrey back. They've signed DeMarcus Robinson, another bigger investment than any of the defensive investments they've made this year. The 49ers have obviously brought back Kyle Juszczyk, and they have added Luke Farrell. Those are all moves dedicated toward the 49ers run game and offensive adaptability. And if you can be better than they were last year in first down run efficiency, number 20, and better on third and fourth down run efficiency, number 31, you will set your passing game up for better success. Better separation from wide receiver personnel, better separation from schematic advantages if you actually are able to run the football. That is the design that the 49ers have in mind heading up to 2025. The case study is the Rams 2024 defensive growth. So if we're talking about the offense picking up the slack for the defense, well, that is exactly what happened in LA this past season. So back to the Rams defensive line. Look at all the additions that they've made through the draft lately. Obviously, the risk there is that your draftees are going to take a while to develop. So that's why the Rams made the bet on Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, up until this past season, Cooper Kupp, Sean McVay, and the offense. They figured that they were going to have to deliver on that side of the ball as the defense went through growing pains. Over the first 3 months of the 2024 season, the Rams defense ranked number 29. Over the final month in the playoffs, the defense ranked number 5. So there was market improvement. The light flipped on for the Rams defense that was heavily a product of the draft. So now consider what the 49ers are thinking heading into this 2025 season. They're obviously going to build this defensive line, which has a lot of holes right now through the NFL draft. And this looks like one of the best draft D lines that we've seen in quite some time. There's absolutely no question that the 49ers are going to do that. Then the question is, how quickly will that D-line and will the defense as a whole, because they've added some other pieces for competition at safety, they've added a couple pieces for competition at linebacker, how quickly will that defense as a whole gel? Because there are a whole lot of new pieces, especially at the margins depth-wise. I think the 49ers anticipate it might take some time because it took over 3 months for the Rams defense this past season. The good news for San Francisco is they may be a year ahead of where the Rams were at this point in their remodel process because San Francisco already hit on the 2024 draft class. From that, we talk about Renardo Green. We talk about Malik Mustafa, 2 starters already on the defense just through the 24 class, but now they need to fortify the defensive line where the drafting has not been nearly as good and not nearly as abundant for the 49ers in recent years. So if it does take some time for San Francisco defensively, they believe the offense is going to be able to pick up the slack, which is why you are seeing this big bet on Brock Purdy. The money is coming for him at some point soon. You're seeing this big bet on auxiliary pieces for Brock Purdy to make sure the offense can run 12 personnel, 21 personnel, 22 personnel, play action, variations of everything. That philosophy is staying the same for the 49ers, all underscored by the re-signing of Kyle Juszczyk today. Really dramatic stuff. The last time that we had seen anything like this was when Jimmy Garoppolo re-signed with the 49ers in 2022. But this might have been more dramatic because Jimmy never left the team for 5 days. And we're going to find out over the coming days or weeks, for sure at the owners' meetings coming up as they straddle March and April. We'll find out exactly what happened behind the scenes. Perhaps the 49ers asked Kyle Juszczyk to take a pay cut, and he said no this time, and they released him, and then he went and tested his market, and then he came back to the 49ers. All I know is that there was a lot of emotion on Monday, and it certainly seemed as if Kyle Juszczyk was gone for good. He was released officially, and then he came back to the 49ers on Saturday for a really good price. This is something that a lot of people are getting very, very wrong. 49ers actually saved money with this versus the old contract. He had been scheduled to make $4.6 million in 2025. Now he's scheduled to make $4 million in 2025 on the APY scale. But Kyle Juszczyk rewarded with more fully guaranteed money. So he wins more security, stability. Kristen and Kyle both know they're going to be in the Bay Area for these next 2 years. He can get up on the 10-year wall if he sticks it through the next 2 years with the 49ers. And San Francisco also knows they'll be able to get him at an efficient price in 2026 because he is one of the foundational core pieces, because they were willing to pay the $7 million fully guaranteed to lock Juszczyk in for 2 years. This is how business works. Business 101. Good deal for both sides. Lessens the 49ers salary cap impact here on Kyle Juszczyk moving forward, because who knows what they would have had to renegotiate at in 2026. You always want to lock in the rate a little bit sooner. I think that this was a good process for both Juszczyk, the longest tenured 49er, and the franchise. And it is one that illuminates where the 49ers are heading as a franchise, and that is toward Brock Purdy. This is a major bet on number 13 and that entire unit. They may have to pick up some slack for the defense next year as that defense goes through its cost-controlled revamp. This is NFL roster business. It is fascinating stuff, Stay tuned for what the 49ers do next.